No matter where you are in the world, there's always time for a great song. This is Life with Rob McGowan. Celebrates the stories that lift us up through the music we love. Come along for the ride. Weekdays from 1 till 3 on Life Radio.
Hi, this is Rob McGowan with Life Radio, and we're here today with Davin Mann. David is working with another Life Radio in Barrie, a place where I grew up as a kid. Great spot. It says you're an assistant programmer with Life Radio, as well as the host of the afternoons. You can listen to him weekdays from 1 to 4 and 4:30 to 7, Saturdays at 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. for the top 20 songs of the week. He also hosts 1 Minute Bible Features. A closer look at that runs on Sundays. Now, I was reading some of those, and those are quite interesting. It's sort of taking the Bible and putting it into everyday conversation, which I thought was a great way to sort of get it out to people. You know, sometimes you can feel a little bit like, I don't even know what these guys are talking about and their statements and reading the Bible and all this. You know, if you don't read the Bible every day, it's hard to translate the message. So we got to put it in everyday terms. And I think that little 1 minute segment thing you do is great. You're a graduate from broadcast journalism in Western University of Fanshawe College. He's currently pursuing a master's of theology at McMaster Divinity College. Wow, you're a busy guy.
Yeah, I mean,
it's going on.
Try to look the part sometimes. Maybe
keep it up.
I've put the seminary stuff on hold. I haven't taken any courses in a few years, but I would like to get back to that down the road. Great. I enjoy studying the Bible and growing in my faith in an intellectual way, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think to have some kind of. I used to be a big Bible reader at one time, back and forth, but then I had stopped for it. But now I've recently taken it back up and trying to realize that if what we fill our mind and our hearts with is what comes out, kind of thing. So I look at the stories and look at them and I break them down as you do on your 1 minute thing. I basically work on that every day, is how can I take this story and relate it to our everyday lives. And I think it's a great way to get across to people, and we can change the world if we do it one step at a time.
Absolutely.
And you're going to be doing we're going to be taking some of your show and playing it here on Life Radio on Fridays at 1 p.m. So we're looking forward to that. People get to hear a new voice other than hearing my silly voice all the time, constantly. It would be nice to hear something different. So we're looking forward to that. So what do you think we might be hearing on Fridays?
Yeah, Fridays, really thankful for the opportunity to partner with you at Life Radio and Miramichi, New Brunswick. And yeah, what you're going to be hearing is Culture to Crossroads. So this is a show that I started. The idea really came to me about 2 years ago. And it first began as a podcast, but has since become a radio show too. And it's really dialogue with influential Canadians and trying to understand how faith intersects with culture. You know, I think the spiritual element of us as people is transcendent, and we can't really escape that. And I think it intersects in every area of our lives. And so what I've done is I've reached out to several people that are really at the forefront of change in Canada and tried to just dialogue with them. Some of them are Christians, some of them aren't, but they're open to answering questions that I believe people of faith would have. And there's been some great conversations from politicians to people in sports, computer science, you name it. And really exciting just to see how
I seen recently you had Andrew Scheer on, right?
Yes, Andrew Scheer's been on the podcast. So has Elizabeth May. So some big names. God's given me a lot of favor. It opened a lot of doors.
Wow, that's awesome. Looking forward to hearing a lot of that stuff. So what got you started? How did your faith? Have you always been faith? Did you grow up in church? Did you and your sort of development finding God?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I grew up in a Christian home, thankful for my parents and the church family and my extended family, and just, being able to see kind of a distinct difference among them to my peers at school. I would say it wasn't until university where my faith really became my own. And it was through campus ministry, Power to Change, where I was motivated to, like we were saying earlier, just kind of dive into the Bible a little more for myself. We had this kind of funny challenge in a Bible study that I was in. If you didn't come back each week with something that you learned from your time with God, then you had to eat a hot pepper. And I don't do very well with spicy food, so that was enough to motivate me. And I'm a pretty competitive guy, and that just was a bit of a catalyst. And so that really moved me. And I feel like I saw a lot of just answers to prayer in that first year of university, and just sort of kept going. And like the faithfulness of family even if you don't see it in the moment, I think once you do kind of get some clarity and you grow in your faith, you're able to look back and point out pretty clearly that, oh yeah, that was my dad's faith, or that was my mom's, devotion. And so that just, it kind of all landed together. And
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, that's something. So you're deciding how it intersects faith and culture, and what are you trying to accomplish with the show? Like, what is it that you want people to see, that it's sort of, we're living it and we don't even realize it? Or is there a goal to the show? The purpose of it?
Great question, Rob. I would say that the goal is to equip Christians primarily to better understand the Canadian culture that we're living in, so that we can take the message of Jesus and be able to share it with them more appropriately. I think sometimes we are so coddled that we have an idea of what someone thinks or where someone is coming from, but we don't actually know. We're not actually informed. And I think by reaching out and chatting with these people that are that really have an impetus on some areas of Canada that are changing so rapidly, that if we can just understand and learn from them, and as the Apostle Paul said, become all things to all people, that we'll be then far more equipped, and we'll have far more merit and respect when we do take the message of Jesus out. And so that's really my hope with this podcast. And I really just have the conviction that we need something for Canada. I think we're so flooded with American content, and we often forget what it means to be a Christian in Canada. And I think that we have a very unique country, and one that we need to champion and just better understand and learn. And I think a lot of us are surprised just how open people are to talk about the spiritual element of their work and of their lives. And you're a believing man. You know how it really does transform everything you do, and it's something that you can't really turn off. It's not compartmentalized. It is everywhere, and even if they're not a Christian, there's aspects of it that definitely coexist.
Yeah, I always say that if most people are seeking God, whether they profess it or not, in our hearts we're all seeking God in some sense. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if we are seeking God, what's the message that they're the answer they're looking for? So I try to find all the people that have changed their lives through God, and maybe those stories can relate to somebody else. And so that's the goal I have all the time, is how can we relate it in a way that you finally go, the light turns on and go, I get it. Okay. This life is so much better. I mean, I've had a struggle with God up and down my whole life, like most people. Wondered, is there a God? Is there not a God? Or why? I've always professed there's a God. For some reason, I've just felt this relationship with God all my whole life. But at times wondered, how does it all work? Am I getting it right? Like I've been doing this course through Easton College about disciple ministries, and how, you have 4 generations of disciples and working it down the line. And listening to these guys at first, I was like, wow, these guys I don't think that way. That's not the way I think. But after I started trying to educate myself on how do other people think, in each realm of learning about God and teaching about God, I find you get more answers, and God gives you a wide open audience to sort of share the message with. And it all comes down to me to one thing. It's just about love. And my favorite scripture is when he says, without love, you have nothing. You can move mountains, you can change the world, do everything. But without love, you have nothing. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, how can I make every moment live in love? And so now, even I was telling, I'm talking too much. I'm just introducing you, and I'm gabbing too much.
That's okay.
But I started an example of how I think in my life. So yesterday at Canadian Tire, I'm going through the aisleways, and I see a jack that pumps up easy rather than a scissor jack, and it's a pump up jack. But my mind thinks, well, if I get that jack, I can put it in my car, and this winter when people are struggling, I can easily help them out. Like everything is about, how can I be of service when I purchase something, do something? So last night I was driving home, and my house burnt in a fire last year, which is a whole nother story, and how God changed my life and made it better by burning my house down.
Wow.
It was probably one of the best things ever happened to me for working with God. but I was working on the house, and you get tired. I work all day at work, and then I go work all night in this house, building it up. And my wife had put some stuff into the car to fill it up out of the basement. I was going to my son's house, and I didn't realize it. And I had to drive up to the hardware store, and I needed some pieces to finish a thing. And I got there, and I had given her my bank card, and I didn't have it. So I was all upset. I got in there, and I didn't have my bank card, and starting to, you're frustrated, you're tired. It's been a long day. And I'm driving back, and I realized, oh, there's my bank card. It's in the dash. So I get that out, and I drive back to the store, and I go in, and I pay for the stuff, and I come out only to realize she's filled the car with the stuff, and I can't even put the pieces I want in the car. So I'm losing my mind now in frustration and tired. And all the way back, I'm driving thinking, oh, I'm so mad. Why did you put the stuff in? Or why did you not? And then God said, oh, I thought you were going to think about better ways to treat situations. And he starts talking to me, and I realize now I have this story, and tomorrow I can go home and tell my wife and have a big smile and have a laugh about what happened. And tomorrow I can tell this story to somebody and tell them about how God talked to me, and I changed it into a fun, positive moment. And that's how I think now. I try to think every moment, no matter how terrible, however bad, however frustrating, can be a God moment if we choose that way. And that's what I'm trying to teach people. And it's a better life, because I'm happier being nice to my wife and being nice to the clerk than going home and being, wow, this sucks. Why did you do that? And having a big fight over something silly. Yeah. So that's my way I move forward with God and do everything in a loving way. And then I teach myself at night. I read my scripture, understand. So when somebody has a question, I can say, oh, well, in this story, this is what God did. This is what happened, blah, blah, blah. And I have something to relate it to in real life. So I love those 1 minute things you do. I think they're great, relating it to real people's lives. And I'm big about going out and bringing God out to the world, as trying to get everybody into the church all the time.
Hey, who knows? Maybe we can bring those onto Life Radio in New Brunswick too, because we do have audio for those. So maybe we can have a further conversation if that's of interest.
Yeah. We definitely, maybe on our social media or something, we can do some little 1 minute clips, and it'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be great. So,
yeah, sure.
And so every Friday the show will be on at 1:00, and you must have quite a few episodes. How long have you been doing the Crossroads Things Now?
Yeah, so it was about 2 years ago when I had the idea, and I launched February of 2020. So I've been doing it for over a year now, but it didn't go to radio until the beginning of May of this year. So in the bank, I've done at this point I think I've had about 45 podcast episodes go live, and I've probably done another 5 more on top of that. So I've done about 50 conversations. So there's lots in the archive, and lots of them are relevant. Lots of them aren't necessarily time sensitive, but I'm doing them all the time. I usually do an interview every single week. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, there's lots to draw on, and even for me, listening back and considering things that I think could be helpful for us as people. One comes to mind, actually, just something that Elizabeth May said actually once when I interviewed her. She was the former leader of the Green Party, and she has some faith, and she just said something I think similar to the approach that you live your life by, Rob. And she said that, in politics in particular, it's so easy to get so heated, and you can really get downtrodden on the person that's coming in opposition to you. But for her, she says one thing that she tries to do is she always tries to never identify that she dislikes the person for who they are, but just tries to dislike how they're acting. And I think that's the little tidbits like that can be real game changers too, because we have to remember that if we're seeing people through God's image, then they as a person aren't corrupt, or we are all fallen. But when we just see it as how they're acting, I think we're going to be less likely to get so worked up about things. We're going to be more optimistic, and we're not going to be as negative.
So what's of all the interviews you've had, is there any one that stands out to you, like a special moment where you're like an aha moment, like, wow, that was something?
Yeah. I've enjoyed so many of these conversations, and I think each one has brought something different to the table. I would say that one that really stands out to me to this day is with a guy named Shannon McNeven. And Shannon started what is people in Ontario are know quite well. It's called Boots and Hearts. It's actually a country music festival. But yeah, the conversation with Shannon, it was just so raw and so real about his faith. I'm sure some of your listeners would be familiar with his brother Trevor. Trevor McNeven has the band Thousand Foot Crutch,
Okay.
well-known Christian band, and so Shannon, in our conversation, is just very, very real about like setbacks and how your faith takes you in that. And we kind of go through his story of uh, growing up and with this really radical faith, and then going down to the States and going to school for hockey and having a sight set on being maybe a big time hockey player, and that doesn't pan out completely for a little while. And then he ends up getting an invitation to go play pro hockey in Germany. And when he's over in Germany, he's playing, but the team that he's playing for, they actually go bankrupt. So Shannon, being a man of faith, is praying about this, and he feels led to become the general manager of this team. But he has no money. I mean, they were bankrupt. They didn't get paid last year, but God just puts the people in his life and gives him the wisdom to end up becoming the general manager of this team. And eventually he becomes like the general manager of like the biggest of teams in the biggest hockey league outside the NHL. Like it's phenomenal. They're very successful. Like God just brings people into his life like to get enough money, like over 100,000, the equivalent over like $150,000 Canadian, to be able to buy this team, and helps turn them around. It's like the farm team for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And so
Wow.
at this point, like he's gunning to be like an NHL general manager. Like it didn't work out for him to be a player. He thinks he could be an NHL GM. So eventually he kind of gets a little bit homesick and feels like it's time to come back to Canada. And considering what he's done, how he's turned these teams around, he was dubbed in the city he was in Germany. He was like considered like the man of the year. Like he was really honored for all the work he did, like just huge accomplishments. Comes back to Canada, and he gets a couple meetings with some NHL teams, but they basically wouldn't even give him a sniff. Like he didn't have the credentials they were looking for. So it was very humbling for him. Very, very humbling. And along this way, he's kind of feeling like he's coming to a bit of an end. Like he's like, I did all this work, like everything was lining up, the stars were all coming together, and then now these NHL GMs won't even give me a look. Like I need an MBA, I don't have that. So then he thinks, okay, well maybe I need to just go back to school and get this MBA they're talking about, and I can kind of get on in my career. So as he starts taking some courses for an MBA, he reaches out to his local hockey team, so the equivalent of a QMJHL team. There, he reaches out to his local Peterborough Petes in Ontario, and prior to this, he had an interview to become the general manager of this local hockey team, and he'd been interviewed, but they ended up going with someone else, a former NHL player they thought would be have a bigger name in the community. So he didn't get the job, but as he's taking this MBA, he reaches out to the guy that got the GM job, and he just says, hey, I'm going to be doing this MBA. Is there any chance that I could volunteer and just kind of, get some experience here? And the guy says, you know what, like considering that we both just went for this job, I think it's probably a better idea that you don't. And so he kind of reaches this really low moment because he's, he'd been on the highest place you could be outside of the NHL, managing this hockey team, turning it around, comes back, and he's not even able to volunteer with his own like local community hockey team. So he's at this like very, very low point. And so the conversation is just rich because along the way, he's not just telling the narrative, but he's also telling like what's that doing in his faith and how he's trying to like respond to God. And so he eventually has this idea to go down to this big music conference in Nashville. And he just sees like how this brings unity. And he actually has this vision to bring a big music festival back to Ontario. He doesn't think there's anything like it. And then that's the start of Boots and Hearts. And lots of people don't know that actually the reason that he started that conference was to get people together, to give them the sense of unity that they might in some ways be pointed to God, but then on the Sunday to have a speaker come in and to witness to all these people. And he told me, like, the first year they had this music festival, that Sunday morning was the largest church service anywhere in Ontario or Canada, because you got all these people together, they're all needing something. And so, yeah, that's probably been one of my favorite conversations. Just all the different trials that he went through, and just how God strengthened his faith through the whole thing. So that's one that I would flag.
That's something. Yeah, I'll have to listen to that one. That sounds really good, actually. I like that. It's amazing. Yeah. Life's what happens while you're making plans. It's incredible how people, it never goes where you want, but as long as he's on the right trajectory, and it sounded like God had all kinds of plans for that fella's motivations.
Yeah, I mean, he can do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine. So
oh yeah,
I think we can
100%.
never plan too far ahead.
No, that's for sure. I keep it daily. I just listen, whatever he says today, that's what I go with. And no, I'm looking forward to the show. And I know you're a busy guy, so we'll have more conversations for sure. And Friday's 1 o'clock. It's going to start playing on Life Radio. That's 106.7 FM and 96.5 here in Miramichi as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Thanks so much for this, Rob.
No trouble, Dave. And we'll talk again.
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got time, it's clear to see.